I'm so excited to finally have this next guest on my show for once. I'm usually on his show. We have the host of, I almost hit the morning train. That would have been hilarious.
I love it.
We have AM800's Dan MacDonald.
Hey, I'm pumped to be here. I've had you on my show for so long.
Yeah.
And I always say the podcast, and here I am on it. This is great to finally be here. I'm super excited.
I am too, and nervous as heck.
Oh, God.
I always find the ones that where you actually know the person or have conversed with them, they're harder to try and figure out questions to ask.
Yeah, it's true, because you know them already. I get the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, before we get started with this episode, I wanted to let you know it is sponsored by GL Heritage Brewing Company. If you sit inside or you decide to sit outside on a nice warm night where you see the sunset and you get to play some cornhole and just enjoy yourself, the variety of beer and seltzers that they have, they're amazing. I had the blueberry one. So make sure that if you're in the Amherstburg area, you head out to GL Heritage. And if you can't be, then check them out on social media and you'll catch all their events. Now, Dan, you're such a natural on the radio. Was that always your calling or?
No,
No?
it wasn't. Originally, even though in a weird way, I've been doing that since I was old enough to have my own tape recorder. Like I was making fake radio shows and taping songs off the TV with my radio tape recorder, and then pretending to be a DJ, back selling and front selling the songs. But my calling originally was all writing. Like I entered into St. Clair College journalism program in hopes of my dream was to be a rock and roll journalist for Rolling Stone magazine, or even work for the Windsor Star, or not that I'm not I run the Windsor Star. I wanted to work for the Windsor Star. I wanted to work for a local publication, a newspaper. The dream was rock star journalist. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But one thing led to another, and I kind of fell into radio, and that was my approach. I was influenced by people like Erica M. on Much Music. She was my favorite, and I loved how she just sounded like somebody who you'd put a record on and she'd talk about how much she liked it. And I liked that she wasn't talking down on people like a big booming announcer. She sounded like a real person. And I always thought, I love that. I loved Sookie Lee on Much Music. I thought she did the same thing. Another guy, Steve Anthony on Much Music. And I love George Stroumboulopoulos.
Oh, yes.
I was a big fan of him too. And locally, Lynn Martin, whose show Time Slot I took over, I loved her pace, her flow, the way she just was someone talking about news on an eye-level way. So those were my inspirations. So if it sounds natural, I think those were all very natural-sounding people.
Yeah, because I didn't know that your morning show was your first one until Jen from Tailgate Takeout told me that she's known you for 20 years. I'm like, how?
Oh, yeah. Because I've been doing the talk show, the Dan MacDonald Show, it'll be 5 years now, but I can't believe that, in October. But I did music radio on 93.9 The River FM dial for Windsor, Detroit for 13 years.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was back selling, front selling songs, what I was kind of practicing since I was a kid. And that was a whole different thing. You know what I mean? That was a whole different job. But that was fun. That was really fun, going to live shows and introducing bands and meeting bands and bands coming on the station, and that was a really, really great job. It was. I do miss it. I miss it so much. But this is more connected to the community, which I like too.
I can say I honestly do understand that, because way back in the day, dating myself, Trillium Cable, I used to write all of the ads that would go across the screen, and that was my job. But they also filmed with Dominic Papa, the news and all them, and they taught me how to do the camera and a little bit of the editing, and people that would come in for their news or they'd go out for sports or concerts, I was always bugging them. I want to come. So,
oh yeah, were you allowed to go along too?
Just that one that I told you about with Glass Tiger, and they got backstage
sweet
footage. So,
yeah. Well, it's funny, the behind the scenes stuff. I started at the radio station as a writer with no intention, believe it or not, of one day getting on the air. In fact, my first time walking through that door, I thought, wouldn't it be neat if one day I had a show like Lynn Martin? I thought that. But I was a writer. I wrote commercials, I wrote promos, and the thing about writing those types of scripts, you have to write them as if you are going to say them. So you would have to read them out loud. You couldn't just write them and hand them in because it never sounded right. You had to read it out loud and be like, ooh, that stumbles, that sounds weird. So I got to writing in kind of a smooth flow of how, I just picture in my head, how would the announcer say this? And I'll write it that way in their voice. You know what I mean? So that was a big help too, leading into it.
That would be fun. Yeah. I used to love the Lynn Martin show. When they used to do the giveaways where they shock people at the different...
I want to start doing that.
I got it.
You got it once?
I got it once. John had gone away and for work, my husband, and I was at the Clinique counter at the Bay, and she came up to me, and it didn't even dawn on me who she was, and I'm just getting some stuff, and she's like, add on to it, I'm buying it today. And I turned around, I'm like, oh my God, and then I started fangirling, and I was having a fit, but I didn't want to be overly, I don't want to ask for too much. So I just said, okay, I'll just have this and this. And she's like, are you sure? Yeah. And then the next day they gave somebody a stove at Home Depot. Oh. And I'm like, really? I could have got like the whole counter.
Oh, next time, take the counter.
I know.
Take the counter.
I loved her. So when she retired, then you came on the air and I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. Like, I loved her. What's this going to be? But it seemed like it was a smooth, seamless transition. She
was my very first caller because I think I was worried about that because she'd been there for 40 years and she's beloved. You know what I mean? She was just a staple that everyone knew. Every morning she was on. So when I took over that show, her and I were talking for like months in advance about it. Just like, are you sure you want it? It's this, it's this. It can get contentious. You can get people who don't agree with you. And she kind of gave me the whole law of the land of how it was. Just to do kind of a changing of the guard. My very first day, before I even introduced a topic, I saw my producer, Will, said, actually, Dan, you have a caller. And I was like, I have a caller already? What the heck? And I didn't even put two and two together. Line one, Lynn. Okay, hi, Lynn. Good morning. Dan, it's Lynn Martin. And she kind of gave it her blessing. And it was nice, I think, for the audience to hear that, just to say, like, Lynn Martin is okay with Dan taking over the show. You know what I mean? It wasn't like,
really nice.
I didn't barge in like, it's my show now. I got much respect to Lynn because, like, in the beginning, she was one of the influences for me. Like, I've listened to her for the majority of her career. You know what I mean? So she's a huge influence on me, gigantic. So it meant a lot her being caller number one.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, because she was great. And the funny thing is you have a distinct voice.
Yeah.
And I had never put two and two together that you were Lana's brother that I had met before you even started.
That's right. You were taking photos and stuff.
Yeah, at her baby shower until you messaged on one of the Facebook things, you liked it and said, oh, my nephew's so cute. And then I'm going, oh, that's
Uncle Dan.
Oh my goodness. I hear you every morning and it didn't even dawn on me.
And you took beautiful photos too of him. They were gorgeous. I was so excited about those pictures.
He is so darn cute.
He's a cute kid, yeah.
He really is. He looks a lot like you and Lana.
Oh yeah, he does. He does.
Really
Yeah,
does.
I see it too. Well, one thing about him too, it's funny how you see little things come out in kids. He reminds me of me because in any Disney show, Star Wars show, he always is rooting for the villain. And that was me. Like, my favorite character was always like Darth Vader, the evil queen, the Wicked Witch of the West, like the Joker. It was always, that was my favorite, were the villains. And he had, whatever gene that is, he is the villain kid. Like, he loves the villain. And I'm like, that's just so cool.
That is cute.
I see a lot of me and him through that.
I love him. I haven't seen him in a few years since that Christmas shoot, but I see his pictures when you have him. And it's like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, he's
so
getting big. Yeah,
I can't believe he's taking the bus to school.
I know. It gives me anxiety. I wanted to follow the bus the first day of school. Be like, I got you in case something happens. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah, no, it's very cool seeing him grow up.
You are really passionate about our community, about the Windsor, Essex County area. Have you always had that passion for our area, or is this something that's grown as you've...
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that's grown, but I've always loved the things that I love and I'm passionate about. I've always had that. Like, since I can remember what I would do on my summer vacation, I'm talking 7, 8, 9, I would get on my bike, and my favorite place to hang out was this place called Olympic Comics. And they sold comic books. I didn't really care much about comic books, but they had vinyl records there. And I'm not kidding, I was 7 and 8 years old. And I just loved looking through the vinyl records and I would spend hours in there, like pulling them out. I didn't even know who half the bands were. I look back now and I remember like, oh, that was Roxy Music, that was Led Zeppelin, that was David Bowie. So, but I remember spending so much time, and kids would go into this place because it was a comic book store. And they'd cause trouble, and the guy used to kick everybody out. I wish I knew where that guy was today. He'd kick everybody out, but he would let me stay because he's like, well, you're good. You just quietly look at the record so you can stay. So that was kind of my little safe space. I did the same thing with the record shop, and there was a video store by my house too called Reruns Video.
Yes.
Right, on the corner of
Yes.
Tecumseh and Alexis, I think. And we didn't... Rewind Video was called. Rewinds was further down the road.
Yeah, that was down by my house.
Yes, down by on Tecumseh. Rewind Video was called, and we didn't have a VCR, so I would spend hours reading the backs of horror movies, and I just loved the little small shop vibe. I got to know the girl, and she'd give me treats and stuff when I'd be in there. So I always loved just small businesses that did cool things. I've always loved that vibe. That was my favorite place to hang out, like a spot that was a neat place you could go and learn about things. So that's kind of where it started, and it just kind of grew from there. Really, it's just me being interested in like a few in neat stuff. I like people who do neat stuff.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is.
Original.
And then it kind of just realized like, oh, that's also supporting local. Who knew? Then that's kind of become the mantra of the show, right? It's like it's supporting local, but it's really just supporting cool things that I like and that I become passionate about.
And you are definitely passionate about music, and I see that you're always traveling like to Michigan or Toronto,
Chicago,
wherever for concerts. How do you feel that we hold up to other areas? Because I'm sure you go to the smaller bars.
Oh yeah, I've always loved our local music scene. Always loved it, and that got ignited back when I was of age to go to the clubs. Just about of age, and I started watching bands perform, and I fell in love with some of them right away. The ones that really, really spoke to me, and it was when I found that little certain niche. Like there were the top 40 cover bands and stuff, and that was neat. It was great. But it was this one night, probably in 1994, 1995. I went to the Loop when they had live music, and a band called the Kildare Trio was performing, and whatever it was, flicked a switch in my head, and I'm like, this is the live music and type of band I would go to Detroit to see. Like, this is a band, I want their CD. And I asked them after, I'm like, do you have an album? They did, and I bought it. I got the tape. And I just became a big fan and started following a lot of people in that band were in other bands, and a lot of the members were interchangeable. So I kind of started following that little, like, crew of musicians, and that led to other musicians. We have a rock solid music scene.
We really do.
And it recently, I think, saw a resurgence with some phenomenal bands who were just on their game. Like ones off the top of my head, the Bluestones are doing phenomenal right now. People like Christy Cochran, people like the band Hutch. I don't know why Hutch isn't gigantic, because they're one of the best bands around, period. Not Windsor bands, just best bands around, like period.
Yeah.
Flowerface, who I adore, she's been signed. She's in Montreal now doing incredible things, working with great people. We've launched a lot of great bands. It's small, but it's gritty and it's mighty. And it's just really, really interesting, our music scene. I love it. And I think it's very strong. There's a little bit of Detroit in us. It's just, there's
we're
that
so
too,
close.
right? Yeah.
I'm not, obviously, I'm a little too old for the bar scene. I'm a grandma, I go to bed early, but I was thinking about when I was preparing for our podcast, and I was watching yours with Anthony Sheridan, who's going to be here in a couple days.
Oh, I love Anthony.
I do too. And you guys talk nonstop about music.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, I may not listen to them, but like I know Sam, who's Pony.
Right, yeah.
And
great
I
band.
know the Autumn Kings because they've come in to be photographed in our studio. Christian Vega?
Christian Vey. Yes, guitar virtuoso.
I know him because he is actually a teacher at Elite Music Studio.
Right, that's
Elite
right.
Piano.
Right, yeah.
And he is amazing. This guy has such a love for teaching young kids that they were supposed to be recording in Michigan. He actually made them wait. And the studio's waiting, the band's waiting, everybody's waiting, because he wanted to make sure he was there for his students when they got up to perform their recitals that we took pictures of. So
that's very cool.
the local artists are also really big lovers of our community and giving back.
Very
There's so
supportive
many
of each other too.
Exactly.
There isn't like a rivalry, at least not that I can know of or sense, but everyone seems to kind of have everyone's back and support each other, and I love that.
They really do.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of like music rivalries in some cities. I'm like, well, why are you like everyone's doing their own thing? Like just you do you and let someone else do them. And I don't really see that attitude in Windsor. It seems a bit more welcoming. Who knows? But I'm not a musician. Maybe there are bands that hate each other. I have no idea. I'd kind of be in on that drama. I'd get the popcorn out, right?
Why not? As long as I'm not involved there.
Totally. But everybody seems very, very, very talented, very passionate, and has everyone's back. So it seems cool.
And they don't understand that having each other's back is actually good for them, because then they're going to be promoted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You get what you give.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think, in our area, for the most part, follow that. And
I think
they're
so,
really supportive of each other.
Yeah, Windsor. I think Windsor is that kind of a city. We always kind of were very, we're very gritty, but we're also, I think we're kind at our core more than anything else here in Windsor.
I think so. Windsor and Essex County has just such a small town vibe, and I love that. It's just a small community for the amount of people we have.
Yeah, and we're very lucky because we have a major U.S. city right next to us. Like that's such a big perk that we have, that we can go experience Detroit and then come back to Windsor and do something entirely different. It's such a neat vibe we have here. I couldn't imagine ever living anywhere else.
I know, and I used to be the one, it was so funny growing up, where it's like, well, you can't shop local. It's so expensive. It's so pricey. And now it's like, I have a hard time going to regular stores because I just really enjoy the local stores and the stories. You end up talking to somebody for 10 minutes in there. And
well, you mentioned GL Heritage.
Yes.
Fun fact, in 2020, when everything was shut down, I was doing a local music concert series where we get bands. We go to either wineries or distilleries or breweries, and they'd play. We'd pay the band, and people would come, and it was a really, really cool thing. And of course, 2020 music venues were like shut down. So we went online, and GL Heritage was the venue. And one of the coolest things about that, she kind of shared every story behind every beer they had on tap.
Aww.
And it was so neat. Like, I didn't know what some of them were. I can't think of the names now, but she'd say, this one is called this because, and then she'd tell this really cool anecdotal story. And it's like, oh, that is so neat. It connected you so much to it when you're, when you know the backstory. And I love, that's what I love so much is the local, just the story behind it and the history that we don't celebrate enough here in Windsor. Our rich history. We're getting better at it, though.
Yeah, we are. And I really, really do think that we need to start becoming a destination area with everything we offer between Essex County and Michigan.
And what we don't, and this is not ripping on Windsor, but what we don't do, what we are bad at, we do not toot our own horn enough.
Exactly.
Even some of the history we have, I know people are going to be eye-rolling, but like, okay, the Rum Runners history, like, shamefully me even, I live in Walkerville. I did not go on that tour until like 2016. like
at Hiram Walker's?
At Hiram Walker, and that was only one of the tours. So there's two. There's the distillery where they make it all. Then there's like the offices where the really cool one. They don't do that one anymore. But 2016, I finally went to the office tour, and I couldn't believe the history. I'm like, how aren't there more movies made about where we live and where we grew up in this history? Then I went into the distillery tour and learned more about it. But there's that. There's our Black history with the Underground Railroad and Amherstburg and the ties there. I know we have the museum, but I feel like we don't lift that up enough and promote it. And we should, because it's amazing.
And I know that people are curious about it, especially in Michigan and United States, because I'll look on my RSS feed. I put it out to probably about 7 or 8 different places, and I have more people in the United States that listen to this show than there are in Windsor.
Wow, isn't that wild?
Yeah, all over the United States, they listen to it. All over Ontario, they listen to it, but United States is kind of interested in us.
And it's funny, it kind of makes you reimagine what local is, right? Is local for us, specifically for us, not for London, Ontario, not for anywhere else, for Windsor, Ontario, Windsor, Essex, local is geographical. And local to me, when I hang out in Detroit, that is supporting local.
Yeah.
Because that's a 7-minute bridge ride away, tunnel ride away. It's right there. So to me, it is supporting local.
Well,
And
didn't they used to call us Southern Detroit?
they did, yeah. Well, even the reason radio, when I was on music radio, you know, stations like, well, CKLW was one of them, 89X, The River, everyone was under the impression that we were broadcasting out of Detroit. And they're like, oh, you're all in Detroit. And you're like, what? You're in Canada? You're in Windsor? Like, yeah, that's where the legendary CKLW, which was the biggest radio station in North America, was out of Windsor, Ontario. Like, that's in history books, that station.
That's pretty cool.
So it's really cool that that is our locality, is the U.S. is part of our locality, I think, here specifically.
And I think the U.S. knows this a little bit more than our own country does, because everybody seems to think that Ontario stops at London.
Yes.
Maybe Chatham. They might know about Chatham. But
Drives me bonkers. Yeah.
I know. It's like, how do you think you get over to Michigan?
Right. I know. We're the big border crossing. No, that bugs me so much, that whole thing. But one thing I do love doing is asking people who aren't from here, either from Detroit or from Toronto or from somewhere not here. I love asking them if they're on the show, on my radio show, like, what are your thoughts on Windsor? How do you see us? Like, the good, bad, the ugly. Just tell us what you love, what you hate. What's your impression of Windsor? And it's always things that never cross my mind. And I'm like, wow, it's neat seeing, I think we take it for granted living here. And I don't know, we rag on it a lot. We're also maybe humble. I don't know. Maybe we're humble about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably that we're humble, but also I think we just took ourselves for granted.
Yeah, that's the big one.
And now we're starting to understand that we have this great area, and why not utilize it and stop depending and relying on all these big corporations and companies and start figuring it out and making it special again. Now we don't have Boblo to make us special, so we need, I know. I miss that.
I do too. I wish I could have experienced that as an adult.
Yeah. Actually, you didn't?
No, I was a teenager when it closed down. Well, I was too cool. I went through the cool stage, so I just didn't go to Boblo anymore. But when I hit my 20s, it was closed. Yeah. And that's when I would have had Boblo a different way in my 20s. But I think I stopped. Last time I went was I was probably 13 years old. My grade 8 class trip was to Boblo.
I was pregnant at 23, and they said they were going to close it. And I actually went one last time by myself. I drove out there, and everybody's like, why? And I'm like, I just wanted to say goodbye.
No kidding.
It was awesome.
Have you been out there since?
Yes, and I got massive poison ivy.
Oh, no.
Well, we took our cameras and we're going through, and I'm just wearing flip-flops, and we're going through the bushes, down the little train tracks, and getting all the pictures. That was, oh God, probably about 7 or 8 years ago.
It's weird, eh?
It was really kind of creepy and sad.
Yeah.
And
I agree. I mean, no disrespect to anybody who lives in Boblo.
Their part's beautiful.
Their part is, but the Boblo, like, you can see little remnants, like, and it's just like, wow, everything's kind of overgrown, and it's just, I remember when this spot had so much life to it. It's weird seeing the weeds, and
they could
like,
kind of make a horror
ivy.
movie in that.
Yeah, it's very eerie. But I remember being like, man, the memory's here, but it's like everything is just a bit lopsided now.
Even driving down the road in Amherstburg and seeing the ramp,
and
it's just kind of all falling over. It's like, get rid of it.
Rip it down.
It's ripping my heart out watching.
It's sad seeing it just die a slow death, basically. Yeah, rip it down.
Yeah,
but it'll be a day when that comes down.
It'll be sad.
Yeah, I know.
Do you still read?
Do I read? OMG, I read at least a book a week.
Well, do you still do a book club?
No, that's going to start up again soon.
Okay.
I did the book club for a year, and we kind of took a break for spring, summer, but that's going to be coming back probably in the fall. Don't quote me on that, but it is coming back.
I'm glad, because I missed it every time.
Oh, it was great. No, the book club was a book that I'd kind of pick. I'd pick a book that was like safe enough that it wouldn't, like, it'd be good for all readers. You know what I mean? We did all local authors too. That was an accident, by the way. It wasn't really originally supposed to be all local authors, but local authors kept approaching me, and I'd read their book, and I'd be like, oh, this is perfect for book club. So it became like a local author book club, which is even better if you ask me. That's better. But I read a book a week, and I'm constantly reading. I'm a fast reader, but I love books. Like, and not just local, I love all books. But yeah, I'm reading one right now called Bunny, and it's like a weird satire horror, I think. It's about all these like sorority girls who hang out and they call each other Bunny. But like something sinister is happening.
Yeah.
It's a really good read. Margaret Atwood gave it a good review on the blurb.
I like her.
On the book, yeah. So I'm a nonstop reader though.
Yeah, I wanted to go to this one.
Yes.
I got this book so that I could go to your book club.
Get out.
And then, Brewed in Windsor, and then I think a podcast or something came up, and I couldn't do it, and I was so bummed out. But
that was a good one because I partnered with the Essex County Library for the book club, and they said they wanted to try different things. They said, why don't we have the book club at a brewery? So we went to the Grove, and we had Elaine and Chris come down, and we had some beer and talked about Brewed in Windsor. It was really fun.
it's awesome. I don't know, I'm just very nostalgic, and I really love our area, and I'm starting to love it more and more the more I do this podcast and I meet the people and I see their businesses and their passion and their love, and we have so many events coming up and going on. Like, we're just hopping left, right, and center. There's so much going on.
You do a great job of putting small businesses out there too. I've discovered a couple from your podcast, like Auntie Aldu's. I discovered from your podcast.
Love her.
And the other one too, and forgive me, you might know it. I can't think of it now, but I actually reached out and had them on my show. The business who does the wooden dome thing where it's all light and I can't think of
the neuro wellness.
That's what
the
it
egg.
is. Yeah, the egg. Yes, that when I saw that.
Did you try that egg?
I didn't try it, no, but I need to because that's right up my alley. But but you do a great job of promoting small, cool things going on.
I really do enjoy it, and I love meeting the new businesses. And through it, and through Jake, my friend, I've met a lot in the drag queen area in the last year. I've really gotten into that community. He's dragged me to drag shows.
You got dragged to drag.
Yeah, I got dragged to drag.
Am I having a memory, or was I at your first drag show?
You were at that brunch.
That was your first one, right?
Yeah, with Coco.
Yeah.
Because I knew Coco. And then in Amherstburg, you hosted that night.
True Festival.
The True Fest.
Yep.
And now we have Queens of Pride. You're going to be hosting that. And
fourth year in a row hosting
Pride
it.
Fest. I am volunteering that year, and I've never been.
Oh, you'll love it.
I can't wait.
Great. Now, our Pride community, that I can speak to. I've been active with the Pride community for years now, but our Pride community, you go to Toronto, and Toronto is where the party's at. I mean, it's massive. That's an economy driver for that whole city when that comes around. It's huge. It's like a party I've never seen before. But I will tell you, I will take Windsor Pride 1,000 times. I love Toronto Pride, but I'll take Windsor Pride any day because it is so community. The president of Pride Fest is there conducting the parade and walking. Like, everyone is so hands on deck. Everybody knows everybody. Like, it is the sense of community. People come together and it feels so organic. Not that Toronto's feels inauthentic, but because it is smaller, it feels like such a community, and it's you'll see when you volunteer. It's such a great vibe, Windsor Pride. They do such a wonderful job.
Even the events that I've gone to, the drag queen shows, but even the audience, like, everybody's just a huge community. They're all supportive of each other. They all know each other, and I like that. The one
thing, because I host that event, that Queens of Pride event on Saturday at Lansbury, I'm also kind of in charge of wrangling the drag queens before they have to come on.
Make sure they have no drama.
Yeah, there is DST, drag standard time. There's dance standard time too. Yeah. Drag standard time is way different, and I will not go out on stage to introduce them unless I can see them. So I'll be like, I'm not going up there because once I announced and they were not ready. And it's like, oh my God, now what do I do? Do I do stand-up? What am I supposed to do? The drag queen isn't ready. They're still getting their lashes on or something. So now I grab them like, hey, don't move. I'm announcing you and you're going on. So that's a bit of a challenge. But they're phenomenal. They're so great. They're really, really fun.
Yeah, Venom Von Snap, she's going to be there. She's on I actually interviewed her last week, and she came here early. She was actually early. Full on, and I'm going to air that episode the week of the Pride Fest.
Oh, cool.
So, I love her.
I'm glad you mentioned her because I've never officially met her before. But I have been a fan for so long, and I'm actually going to be on a panel with her coming up at the Art Windsor Essex.
Okay.
And when I saw that she was on, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to fanboy out when I see her because I'm a big fan, but I'm a fan from afar.
Yeah.
So I'm pumped to work with her on Queens of Pride, and I'm pumped to share a panel with her about Pride coming up too.
Yeah,
she's really cool.
Jake introduced me to her as well, and I love her. And I tell you, bitch doesn't need to wear a wig because she has some nice hair without it.
Really?
Oh yeah, she's got curlies and
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just love her look, and she just seems really cool. So I'm excited to.
we went for a meeting. Even though I'd met her, we went for a meeting because I always like to meet everybody before. And we were at the mall. She's getting ready to go to work, but we stopped in at Sephora. And by the time we had to leave Sephora because we had tried so much of the perfume, I literally wanted to gag. I'm like, okay. And I came home and I had to shower because it was all over my clothes. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die.
You got dragged.
She was so much fun. I love her so much.
She's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And we had our little goodbye to Coco because she came to my podcast wearing clothes from Coco.
Oh, she's wearing Coco attire.
Yes,
Oh, wow.
the pink outfit and
yeah, because Coco has kind of stepped away a little bit from the drag scene, as far as I know. Yeah. But was
Coco.
a huge supporter. And talk about a cheerleader who really kind of got it going.
Oh yes.
In Windsor.
Yeah, she was an amazing performer and an amazing friend. I miss them.
Well, you know what's interesting? I used to go to drag shows in Detroit a lot before there was a lot of drag shows here back in the 1990s. And that was another thing about Windsor, Detroit, that we were very lucky. We could go, you had to be 18 to get into clubs there. So you couldn't drink, but you got the bracelet. You could be 18, so you could be a bit younger. But that was a neat thing about Detroit, was you could be anything you wanted to be in a different city where nobody knew you. You could reinvent yourself.
Nice.
And then you come back to Windsor, at least I did. I can only speak for myself, but I know I'm not alone. A lot of people did that. We went up to Detroit and we clubbed it up and we did what we did and we had a lot of fun. And then we came home, and if you were in the closet like I was, you could be in the closet and then I could be Wild Gay Dan at Menjo's in Detroit. And we did that. And I remember seeing a lot of the drag queens. One was named Amanda Collins was her name, and she was like a legendary Detroit drag queen I used to go see all the time. I don't know what happened to her, but I remember she was a thing when she was performing. Like, people came out in droves to see her, and she was great.
Yeah,
I love the drag scene.
I'm learning a lot. Like, I learned from Venom about drag mothers. And then I learned at that brunch about a female could be a drag
AFAB queen. Yeah, assigned female at birth. Yeah, it's wild.
I had no idea of that.
Well, I think there's a big misconception about drag because...
And then drag kings.
Drag kings, yeah. Drag really is just kind of a persona and a character, and I don't know if you can call it a shield or you can call it a key that opens up and shows a side that you normally hide. But when you think about it, people like Elvira, like Cassandra Peterson, that's a drag queen. That's a drag persona.
I never even thought of it like that.
It's a wig. It's the outfit. And when she's out of that drag, she looks totally different. She's a redhead who you could pass in the street and would know. Another drag king, I think, is Pee Wee Herman. Paul Rubens.
Yes.
He was a drag king. That character, Pee Wee Herman, didn't exist. That's a guy he invented with the little red bow tie and the gray suit and the hair and the stupid laugh. And Paul Rubens was an actor, and Pee Wee Herman was his drag persona. And it was a persona.
You never think of that
That
like
was
that.
drag, you know what I mean? He invented a character just like Venom invented Venom. Coco invented Coco. And who is Coco? Coco is bubbly and likes pink and is kind of ditzy and kind of, you know what I mean? That was Coco. And Elvira was very, valley girl and kind of slutty and boob
and
jokes.
she was not like that in person.
Right, it was a whole different thing.
My
Very
God.
together when she speaks, but Valley Girl is Elvira. And I love that. So I love that people are exploring drag in that sense.
And I'm glad that I find that the Windsor Essex County area is very inviting, and they're very warm to the drag community. Not like how it used to be. It's people are getting used to it.
Yeah, I think so too. And if you look online is one thing. There's always going to be backlash online, and I've almost learned to treat, even though I love online, you kind of have to treat it like an alternate reality. If people are going to say really horrible things online, it doesn't often come out in real life, though. And for drag, the drag community here in Windsor, there is a little bit of backlash now and then, but for the most part, we're really, really accepting here in Windsor. We kind of always have been, too, I think.
Oh, that's good.
I feel like we have. I mean, it's evolving, obviously.
Well, it's new to me, so I'm just learning it, but I was shocked by the amount of people at True Fest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, I had so much fun
It's
that
nice
night.
to see that.
It was really nice.
And I won't lie, part of me still gets a little bit nervous when I'm hosting any kind of drag event. I think, oh, is someone going to come and protest it? Is someone, and I'll be honest, my mind even goes dark. Is somebody going to try to beat somebody up, or worse? You never know.
Well, the New York one.
Exactly. Things like that I worry about. But time and time again, everyone's just there to have fun. And if you don't like it, you don't go.
Exactly.
And it's as easy as that. That's all it is too. But if you want to go, I had a caller once to my show who was complaining about True Fest. And I said, listen, I want to challenge you with something. It's free. Just walk through. I'm not asking you to pay anything or tip a drag queen. Just walk through and take note of what you see. You're not going to see anything inappropriate. You're just going to see people dressed up in goofy clothing having a lot of fun. And what's wrong with that? And if it's not your thing, it's not your thing, and that's cool too. But it's nothing to protest. It's just people having a good time. Yeah, and I don't know why anybody would be against that.
Yeah, it's Boy George.
It's Boy George. Yeah. Did you grow up in the 80s? Have you seen the men in the 80s?
They all look like
my God.
women. Oh my God,
Prince wore the highest heels of anyone in the 80s. And he probably wore a lot more eyeliner too. And there was Boy George, and there was Duran Duran, and all those guys. Michael Jackson. Oh. I mean, the masculine role models were Prince and Michael Jackson. They weren't the most masculine guys, and the other guys too. All those '80s new wave bands. They wore more makeup than Cyndi Lauper. Alice Cooper.
Oh my
another
God!
one.
How hard and manly can a person be like Alice Cooper, who wore nothing but makeup?
Well, and those were always my favorite artists too. Were the ones who were very extravagant. Like I was always drawn to Kiss as a kid because they had fun makeup. David Bowie, I thought, was just the coolest thing ever. Annie Lennox always played with persona. In a way, all those people are kind of, you could say they're playing with drag. Well, and all of them walked the line of gender play too. Like Prince was very, very feminine, but all of his songs were about getting it on with women.
Yeah.
He was also but look at him. He had this high falsetto voice. He pranced around. He wore capes, heels, and eyeliner, and the ass cut out of his jeans or his pants. Yeah. But man, he got the ladies. But I love that he played with gender and walked that line and really blurred all the lines, and that's what it's all about. That's when it gets really fun, I think, and interesting.
I like that people are able to be more open.
Yes.
And like our friend Six, and he does his wife's nails as well as his own, and they look so good.
Oh, yeah.
I just like that we can do that now.
It is. It's very, very nice, and it's when you think about it, really, when somebody would get angry because somebody else painted their nails, what a silly thing to get angry about. It's like, well, why? And really, whenever somebody is angry or gets mad, I don't like that person because they're a guy wearing a dress or painting their nails or they have long hair. Back in the 60s, heaven forbid the Beatles had long hair. I just think, well, if that's more about you than the person with long hair or painted nails. Exactly. What is it about that bothers you? Ask yourself, why am I getting upset and triggered and angry and my back is up? Ask yourself why, and that will tell you more about you than the person with the long hair or whatever it is they're doing, the drag queen, whatever you're mad about. Why are you mad? Explore that truthfully and honestly. Why are you mad? And it'll be like, oh my God, I have a weird hang up about this and I need to stop that. Yeah. It's all a cute clue to who you are, right?
Yeah. Or go to a drag show and tell me which one is the from birth female.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Do you remember they used to do that on Maury Povich and stuff? Who's the man, who's the woman with drag queens? Yes. I used to love that one.
I couldn't tell. I wouldn't have picked that one that day. I was shocked when Jake told me. I'm like, no, they do that?
Oh, like, yeah. Drag king shows, I'm glad, are getting more fun.
I have not seen one yet.
I saw one, believe it or not, in 1996. They did them back then. It was opening for a band called the Murmurs in Detroit. The Murmurs were like a lesbian duo folk group, and it was at a lesbian bar, and I was the token male there, the only one, and it was a drag king show that opened. I'm like, well, this is neat. I've never seen a drag king show. I would have been 19 or 20, and it was weird because when it's female presenting drag, it's all the things about females but exaggerated. So big makeup, big hair, the big boobs, the big hips, like everything is big and bright and colorful and sparkly. So with Drag King, it was like everything masculine was emphasized, So it was a whole different vibe. Like it was almost kind of like, oh, is this person gonna beat me up? Like this is this is a lot of masculinity going on here. But I'm glad to see like the drag kings that I'm seeing today are very like flary and fun and goofy and almost more clowning in a lot of ways.
Do we have any of those shows in Windsor?
There are a few full drag king shows, no, but I know one that I can think of is named Hudson Bay, and they do drag king work, very androgynous, but kind of more drag king oriented.
I would love to see a show.
Yeah, Hudson Bay, they're very, very cool. Put on a very interesting show, and there's some vavoom to it. The drag king show I saw in Ann Arbor, Michigan, it was a little bit like intimidating because they were almost going by like I'm the sexist male, so it was kind of like, eesh, like this isn't really worth celebrating. Like drag queens seem more fabulous. This is just kind of a guy I wouldn't want to hang out with. But the drag kings I'm seeing now are just kind of like fun, flamboyant, almost like Prince or Liberace, or they have that flair to them. But it's still masculine, but it's that different type of masculine. Yeah,
that would be fun to see.
It's cool. Yeah.
So what is your next event that you're going to be doing?
Windsor Pride is my next big thing. That's coming up, first couple weeks of August, and I'll be hosting the Queens of Pride event. I'll be in the parade. I'm not sure when this podcast is coming out, but I'm
2 days.
Okay, so I'll let it simmer, but I'm going to be playing a very significant role in Pride this year. I don't know if it's announced yet, but I'm very, very honored. I was given a title, and I'm extremely honored for that. That's going to be coming out when Pride happens, but I'm going to be priding it up and celebrating the love here in Windsor, Essex for our community and for the allies too. That's one of my favorite things about Pride is, it used to be about more of a protest, more of marching in the streets and being known and power and visibility. And now that is still there. Visibility, I think, is number one. You need that visibility. But I love seeing parents of people who have come out and allies and friends and seeing that support. That's something I've seen evolve, where it was 8 people by the sidelines watching you march in the parade versus now people are coming out. A lot of that's to do with drag queens, but a lot of it is just, it shows the changing of the times that we're supporting each other, and that's what it's all about. Yeah. So my next go is I am ready to pride it up. I'll be at all the Pride events. I can't wait. And
in the fall, you're going to have your book club back?
That is coming back, yes.
Yay.
And again, I can't say completely yet, but I am going to be returning to the stage as well in 2025, and believe it or not, a musical. And I can't say much more about that, but it is some singing. It is some singing.
So you can sing?
I'm going to be singing. But
lots of classes.
Yes, lots of classes, but it's like a legit musical, and it's a very prominent role. And I can't say too much more about that, but I'm already trying to get in shape for it. Like I've been practicing, I've been kind of changing some of my habits.
Is that why you're walking?
That's why I'm walking. That's exactly why I'm walking. And no one has connected those dots yet, but that is 100% why I'm doing the walks. It's to slowly build up to eventually getting back to the gym that I've been paying for 4 years and haven't gone to once. Isn't that great?
That's on the other side of that panel is gym equipment that I don't come downstairs for.
There you go. Yep.
I started walking. I was so proud of myself. I'm keeping up because I used to do 20-some thousand a day when we went keto a few years ago.
That's good.
And then all of a sudden it got humid. My legs swelled up. I go to the doctor. I'm like, am I having congestive heart failure? And they're like, no, you're retaining water. And I'm like, oh, come on.
Right, walking can be bad for
So I started rowing because I have a rowing machine upstairs, but well, you're kicking butt.
I am. I'm walking a lot, yeah. And the thing is, I tend to make these super lofty goals, and I beat myself if I don't meet them. So this one, I'm like, you know what? Let's just do something that's not that challenging, but it's a bit more. 10,000 a day is going to be it. Like that'll be what I reach. That's what I want to reach. But I've been going to 17, 22. Yeah. So it's
not hard.
It's not hard. No, it's just walk and just make a point of it, like an hour and a half a day or an hour a day, and just.
Well, that's what me and John do, an hour every morning, or at least we were, and I want to get back to that again in a couple days. Have you ever tried our Herb Gray Parkway?
Love it.
The trail? Loved it.
Amazing. What a gem that is.
It really is. And if you go early enough in the morning, I think around 6 a.m., 5:36, when it starts to get light, you can see some nice coyotes.
Oh, get out. I've never seen a coyote.
Well, each entrance and exit on Huron Church and EC Row, there's dens there, and then we have tons of deer.
Oh, I love seeing
deer. Tons of deer and bunnies. And
are the coyotes scary at all?
The one that I saw it had a gimp leg, and it's known in the neighborhood, and Usually, if you hang outside down our street on Sunday nights, or they like the garbage night.
Really?
Yeah.
But I love that Herb Gray
Yeah,
trail.
yeah, it is one that, like, if you were to say park here and walk it, and you can get over a couple of those overpasses, those are killer. My heart rate will go up to like 130.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
I scooter a lot too, so I do
Yeah.
the trails like that as well.
We have the LaSalle.
Love them.
Oh
Those
my
trails. I did them once during the pandemic, and I was like, I don't know where I am right now. Like, I kind of lost like my bearings. I'm like, okay, I had to pull my phone out, like, where GPS am I? I'm like, okay, here's like, I was like, I could be in Amherstburg right now. I have no idea. I'm just wandering through trails. And I'm like, I think I'm on a different trail system now somehow. But
There's a LaSalle, this LaSalle one that you go through a bush. You end up on a ranch with horses and a mule.
That's
donkey.
what happened.
Yes.
I saw a big pile of like poop.
Yeah.
But it was big, and I was like, is there a brontosaurus? Like, what is big enough to make that kind of poop? Like, where am I right now? And then I saw like the ranch with the horses.
Yeah, and then but if you go straight, then you end up in a marsh.
Right.
Oh.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
We're very lucky. I got to explore that one again because it was during the pandemic, and it was just a bizarre time. I got to go
That's
back
when
and do it
I
again.
found it, was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I love this area, and I love Windsor. And
Me too, yeah.
I love your show because,
thank you.
And now watching you guys, so I can hear it instead of having like little earbuds in trying to listen to the shows. But the morning drive, if people watched or listened to the morning drive, and then they know what's going on in the city.
Yeah.
And it was small businesses, events, and just tired of people saying, I didn't know about this event. How'd you know about this event? I don't know.
And that's the scary thing, because it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, but it's a changing of the times. Before, when we had 4 channels on our TV, and everybody watched one of 4 channels, and everyone listened to the radio, and that was kind of it.
Yeah.
But now it's like, I heard about this on Facebook. Oh, I'm not on Facebook, on Instagram. Well, I didn't advertise on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Oh, I didn't advertise on Twitter. And I don't listen to that. I listen to podcasts, not radio stations. It's all good that there's so much more media, but it did create getting that message out a bit more difficult. Before, you'd put an ad in the Windsor Star and everybody knew about it.
Well, that's what pissed me off about Canadians, the Canadian government stopping the news on Instagram, on our social media.
Right.
Because everybody's on social media, and
you can't share a story anymore on Facebook anyway.
No. Instagram, sometimes I see some getting through, but not too much. At least Threads, but not too many people use Threads.
I even ended up giving up on Threads. I was on Threads for a bit, and I was kind of like, I'm
like that with X. I get lost. When it was Twitter, I got it, and I got lost in it. And it's like, okay, where's the people that I follow?
Yeah, that's what I wanted too, and I got rid of X too. I liked it for a bit. I had a good following too. I had close to 10,000 people, which was decent. And I just found every time I'd pull my feet up, it was things I didn't follow, things that I could tell were designed to get me ticked off because they want you to engage. But I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not playing this game. Goodbye. And I just wished it all away. It's gone.
Yes.
But it is neat. We have so many options now, but it does make getting the word out a bit more difficult because everyone is tuned into different channels now than we were before.
And if you can't catch Dan's show in the morning, I found out trying to find the stupid Northern Lights that your show is aired at night as well.
It is, yes, it is.
You didn't know that.
I didn't know that until I heard it one night in the car. I was like, oh my God, this is me right now. This is so cool. Yeah, they re-air, I think, an hour or 2. Yeah. Not the full show, but about an hour. I don't think they do they do the round table?
I don't think so.
No, I think it's the hour or 2 after that. But yeah, it is in the evening as well, so you can catch it then too. And I'll see sometimes texts of people texting in thinking it's a live show. And I'll get them in the morning. I'm like, oh, they thought it was live at 10 o'clock last night, but it's not.
Yeah, because they don't put it out there or at least I didn't hear that. This is a recording. Please do not call in.
Did you get to see the Northern Lights?
No, I was like you.
That's right, you were with me.
Around.
I didn't see anything.
No.
I'm like, is this a joke? Am I being punked? We drove all across the city.
Well, and people, they said use your phones. We were even in the county, and
nothing. Yeah, it was a disappointment. I was very upset about that.
Same here. I'm like, well, that was a waste of time.
Totally.
But anyway, I so appreciate you being here.
Oh, are you kidding? This is so much fun. Anytime you want me, I'm here.
I'm keeping you up with that.
Please do, yes.
And make sure that you catch Dan MacDonald on AM800 weekdays from 9 until noon. Oh, really quickly,
Yeah.
the round table did you always have the round table, or is that just
No,
recent?
it
was once a week, wasn't it?
It used to be once a week.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, we did it via phone too, which was hard to do over the phone. It was next to impossible. Then when things got back and things really opened up, we started having them in the studio, and then we did it to every day 9 to 10, first hour. So
Yeah.
we have different people every day, 2 to 3 people, usually 3. But
Yeah.
sometimes somebody will drop out at the last minute or something, so it's 2. But we always have, it's been really fun getting to know people and hearing.
I love listening to it.
Yeah, it is good.
So definitely AM800, weekdays, 9 to noon, Dan MacDonald, and the round table from 9 to 10. That is a must.
Yeah,
That
thank
is
you.
a must.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, my name is Tracy Martins, and thank you for joining me for another episode of YQG and Bloom. You guys have a great day.